started the scholarship about 3 years ago. We're on our third season, and we started, I guess, we had 20 applicants in the first year. Now we're up to 150. We're going across Canada with a heat in Vancouver, a heat in Calgary, a heat in Toronto, and a heat in Montreal. We'd love to get to Halifax one year, but we'll see how this goes. The initiative there is you go into Hawksworth Hawksworthscholarship.com. You'll see a list of ingredients. We want you to put a dish together and then take a photograph, do a recipe, send it in, and then within the region we take the top 10. They come and produce that dish. And then we have fantastic judges from across Canada that are there. We'll take the top 2 from each city, and then we'll have the finale back in Vancouver. And the idea was, when I did 10 years over in the UK, and I saw the Roux brothers do a great program, and I thought it was, all the cooks over there would get excited about this, and it was a real sort of sense of pride to be, to enter the competition, to compete, and if they actually won it, it was a huge, movement in their career. And so I'm very passionate about Canada, and I think Canadian cuisine should be on a higher level or a higher stage than it actually is right now. So I think this is hopefully one little way of helping this out. So that's
good, excellent. Jean-François? I agree.
So yes, it starts with a simple idea. I go through a hotel management class in Montreal, a course for 3 years in hotel management. By the way, I'm not a chef. I'm a good cook, but I'm not a chef. So, but I work with chefs, and for me, it's a way to get them mobilized and involved, socially involved. I think that chefs have great power to solve hunger in different ways. So that's why I'm getting them. We created this driving force of social involvement. And basically how it started, I'm a foodie since I was born. I mean, I love food, and my dad had a gastronomical club. When I was 12, I wasn't drinking the wine, but I always wanted to go with him and taste the food. So I met Normand Laprise. I was 12, and I ate my first piece of foie gras. And then I was like, that was it for me. And when I was in class at the hotel management class at l'ITHQ in Montreal, we would cook food, about 20 people, and we'd see all that food after we'd eat like one plate, and then we'd turn around different stations, but we would eat and we would comment on who was making the best, and at the end everything was thrown away. The chef would say, okay, let's wrap up, and wrap it up would be not to wrap it up, would be to put it in the garbage. So because of food intoxication and the risk of food security, so basically went in and launched this idea of creating a food recovery program for the chefs and the hotels in the catering industry. We're present, and the first place we've done it actually is at the Bell Center. We recover more than 60,000 meals out of the executive suites of the Bell Center. So right now, the series, going further, brings more food to people in need in the city of Montreal. We feed people in Saint-Henri. We feed about 1,000 people after every game. So, entertainment food scene, it produces twice the amount of food because of the price they charge, and so there creates a lot of food waste. And that food, I hate to call it waste, because when you go in and you see and you look at it, it's great food to be eaten. And so, altogether, we've put together a web platform called récupérationalimentaire.org, and we recover now more than 500,000 meals, and we feed Canadians in need, because we're present in Alberta, in Calgary, we're present in Toronto now, and in Ottawa. And the food education part is so important, because I was on the board of Moisson Montreal, who's the largest Canadian food bank. And one of the things that public health launched is that a study saying that 30% of the people that would not depend on food banks to feed themselves if they would have the proper knowledge and skills. So, you go into poor areas and people eat more and more bad prepared food, high sodium, bad food, and they don't know how to cook anymore. So the people that have the highest responsibility and the lowest budget to feed their family don't have the skills to take care of that. So we launched a school program in high school, and we're now in 60 high schools across the province of Quebec. We're backed up by IGA Sobase. They provide us 50% of all the food that we now buy 200,000 of food in a year, so IGA pays for 100,000 of that. So it's really kicked off, and we want to reach 200 schools within the next 5 years and across Canada with the program anytime within the next 3 years.
That's great. Excellent.
Yeah, exactly. First of all, thanks to Alison and David and everybody here. Arlene for putting on Terroir. It's been fantastic so far. My first time here for this festival. It's spectacular to see all the peers from across Canada. I spent last summer riding my bike across the country, 8,700 kilometers, doing 24 events with some of the best chefs in the country who invited, in turn, some of the best chefs in their community. And the point of the journey was a foundation we started called Chefs for Oceans, which basically has 3 goals. One goal is to raise awareness and educate our peer group for the importance of healthy lakes, oceans, and rivers. Second goal is to create a national sustainable seafood day. We've chosen March 18th as our target date. We launched the project 3 years ago, and we haven't quite got the government, quite honestly, any government, to officially recognize March 18th as the day that we celebrate sustainable seafood in Canada. And my BHAG, or my big, hairy, audacious goal, is to have sustainable seafood accessible to every Canadian within the next decade. So we started that goal last year, so I have nine years left. Of course, that will take retail to take the message that, chefs have this incredible ability to connect with their customers through food. It's the one thing that connects every human, is food. And 2 billion people on the planet rely on the world's oceans for their daily source of protein. 2 billion people. And so if we don't protect the 7 oceans that surround this planet, the 3 oceans that surround this country, we're in trouble. And certainly, for me as a chef, I've recognized, through programs like OceanWise and Sea Choice and WWF Canada, doing some great work, boots on the ground through marine biology and scientific research. I've been a part of the OceanWise program for 10 years. They launched 10 years ago. I stand on the shoulders of chefs like Rob Clark, who some of you may know, who really pioneered change 15 years ago. He's actually an Ontario guy who moved out west and started asking the questions, where are my fishermen? Roddy, where are my fishermen? Who are they? Where does this fish come from? What is this fish? And so I figured that I could do something about it. I have a wobbly soapbox as the exec chef of the Four Seasons. We have 100 hotels around the world. Why not me? Why not you guys? Why not us together try and educate the next generation of young culinarians of the importance of seafood and what it means on our plates? We're concerned about what happens on land. You don't meet many chefs these days who are worth their salt, who don't know exactly where their pigs, chickens, beef, fruits, vegetables come from. But I guarantee you most of them have no idea where their seafood comes from. And certainly don't know the names of their fishermen. And how can you give value to the fisherman and the catch that he's bringing into his or her boat if you don't know who they are? So I would like to create National Sustainable Seafood Day on March 18th, where we can celebrate it as a country and hopefully get to know the names of my fishermen more and more and more. Hopefully we all do. Because if we don't give value for their catch, we're not going to be able to give value to the communities and the regions and the provinces that we rely on so heavily for the seafood that we eat. So that's what Chefs for Oceans is all about. We've had an incredible run. It's been a great year. 8,700 kilometers is a long way. We did 27 or 24 events, and we're going to continue to do 24 more over the next couple of years. And hopefully through the peer group that I have globally, through the guys on the panel like this, through the guys in the audience, guys and girls in the audience, we'll just continue to collaborate on the importance of healthy lakes, oceans, and rivers. Not only in this country, the best country in the world, one of the best countries in the world for some of those that are traveling from elsewhere, but being an Okanagan boy, I feel pretty passionate about where my food comes from. I know you all do, but it's up to us, guys.
Good question.
We are going to pioneer change.
Ned, you brought up a great point in asking questions, and I'd like to sort of ask our other two guests here to ask, wait, you're all part of a movement, and individually and collectively as well, and movements always sort of start with asking tough questions. So what questions, David, would you have posed to say, okay, why me, why am I doing this, or what other questions did you ask of others to sort of get the mentor program, really, which is what you're all about, happening? That wasn't meant to be a tough question either.
I felt a responsibility just to do something like this here in Canada. I feel as though that like I was saying, that Canadian cuisine doesn't get the same, the airplay, and that we have such our problem with Canada is so vast that it's and so many great restaurants here that I think we should have a better the word I'm looking for, but just there should be more recognition of all the great restaurants and the chefs here, and I thought this was a great way to get the young talent sort of organized, and and incredible for everybody to meet Mark McEwen and to meet Norman Lepre and to get on this path. So that's and I thought, why not? So
why not?
And the first year was a little bit tough, but now I've got a great team that's with Chad and with Christian and our whole infrastructure back there that now we've had 150 applicants, and it's growing by leaps and bounds.
Two of them are from my kitchen and actually are stoked to be competing this year. So
that's great.
Pretty exciting.
Jean-François, did you ask any tough questions of others around you and yourself even when you wanted to start? When you see, yes, everybody supports the Habs, and how much food is coming out of those executive suites is quite on one hand great, but on the other, because then it could feed people, but on the other hand, so much food waste.
Yeah, I think at first. At first I was working in the hotel industry, and I worked in the banquets. I always had my nose in the kitchen because, as opposed to others, I was creating relationships with chefs because I wanted to get my part of the food. So I was always knowing my way in the kitchen. So, but at the same time, you see these guys working every day, preparing the food. I always do the parallel with an architect that's building something. Or that's creating something, and they give it and they build it, and then after that you just tear it down, and it's heartbreaking. So imagine chefs working every day, all day in the kitchen, starting really early in the morning, preparing all that food, and that an hour after it's out, it's coming, because half of it sometimes comes back in the kitchen, and it's not even touching it goes in the kitchen. The guys have been working, they close their eyes, so I've been meeting so many chefs, so you cannot, that food for me is work, but it's not only the work of the chefs in the kitchen, it's the work of the people that grew that food, and so it comes from everybody that touched that food to that dish, so for me it's total waste, so it cannot, the first question I tackled is the Ministry of Agriculture is saying, what, we're going to do this no matter what, is you know me, I'm not, you're going to either have to catch me because I'm still going to do it, or you build a security chart with us so the chefs feel secure that your inspectors won't close off their kitchen because they're doing this. Because the things that I was hearing from the chefs was, I cannot do this, the inspector will come, he'll see the containers, I'll have to hide them. And I was saying, no, we're going to do it legit, it's going to be legit, and it's going to be working, it's going to be turnkey, because you guys are working hard enough doesn't have to take more than 50 minutes a day, to put that food aside, and it's going to be part of our process. I worked as a director of sales and marketing for Marriott, for Fairmont Hotels and Resorts, and I know the hotel industry is an industry of process, so we really wanted to get this really simple, and so now it's working very well. But it's been hard. It's been really hard. In the beginning of the first 5 years of 2000, where you didn't have that green movement, you didn't have those zero waste events, and all those meeting planners now wanting to have green events and stuff. That helped a lot because it puts pressure on the chef to be creative and try to do something with food waste. And so, hey Jeff, you talked to us about this. Can we still do this? I said, of course you can do it. It's easy. Just go on the web and you just LinkedIn and you connect with food centers that need that food.
I'm going to ask Ned a slightly different question and say, what questions would you ask of this audience to get them involved? Like, to affect change, to become involved beyond the kitchen? Like, what are the tough questions we should be asking this room?
Well, first of all, people ask me all the time. The first question I heard from almost every single Canadian that we touched across Canada was, what is sustainable seafood? What does that mean? And it means something different to the fisherman than it does to, the chef, potentially. Putting food on the table, feeding my family, that's sustainable seafood for a small fisherman. And so it does mean different things to different people. And so, I ask people all the time, you can do one thing, and that's just ask the question, is this seafood sustainable? And if they can't give you the answer, then you probably haven't. So it involves people in our peer group, of course, because we feed, I feed 350,000 people a year in my hotel. It's 350,000 people that hopefully can leave. We're the first luxury hotel in the country to be 100% ocean-wise. Very proud of that. We started that program 4 years ago. And so, people say to me, well, sustainable seafood, it's more expensive. And I'll say, well, more expensive in comparison to what? We're addicted to cheap in North America. It's a race to the bottom. I want to give value to the catch. I want to give value to the fishermen. And then give value to my customers. I like to say if I make something tasty and I put it in your belly, you're probably going to like me as a chef. And if you like me, you're probably going to listen to my message. And then you're going to go to the grocery store and you're going to look for the Sea Choice or the Ocean Wise logo, or you're going to look for a number of other logos potentially that exist in this country where marine biology and scientific research has gone into those programs. And then you're going to start purchasing seafood. Retail is where we're going to affect change. Because when you eat it in a restaurant, you fall in love with it. You fall in love with your favorite chef. Whether you're eating at Maddie's place, Parts and Labor, whether you're eating at, Rob's place, Buka, you're going to fall in love with that chef, his food, her food, But then you're going to go to a grocery store and you're going to ask, what seafood do you have that's sustainable? Grocery stores are in the business of selling product. They will sell what you ask them to carry. You stop asking for the cheap seafood. They'll start carrying the better seafood. And instead of an 8-ounce piece of cheap seafood, why don't you eat a 4-ounce piece of higher quality, sustainable seafood and fill your plate up with plant-based nutrient density, which we all should be doing anyway. So healthy lakes, oceans, and rivers to me is a question. What do we want for the next generation? I'm about to have my 3rd son. I only apparently know the boy recipe. I don't know how to make girls.
I have the recipe. I have 3 girls.
You have 3 girls. I want to bring your program to Vancouver, so maybe we should go on a triple date. But the truth is, guys, it starts with a simple question of your server, of your chef, of your fishmonger, if you're lucky enough to have an actual fishmonger in your community. I traveled Canada over 3 months. One thing I know for sure, like the first speaker this morning, there's some phenomenal food in this country and there's some really poor food in this country. So the people that we're talking to in this room are the top 10%. I was talking to Mark, the author of The Dorito Effect, and people are giving him shit all the time because you're only talking to the top 1%. And he goes, yeah, but if we talk to the 1%, Then the 2 and the 3 and the 5 and the 10% affect change, and then maybe it bleeds into the rest of the population. We have to do this. We have no choice, because we will continue to overfish the oceans until species continue to collapse like they did for the cod fishery back in the early 90s. 25% of the population of Newfoundland unemployed like that. What would happen if that happened on the west coast to the wild salmon fishery? 6 times the size of the aquaculture industry. It would be devastating, like it was on the east coast. We have to do it. We will be forced to do it, whether we like it or not. So why don't we do it now?
So you all know what you're asking your fishmongers, your fish supplier tomorrow. Where does it come from? And is it sustainable?
And what is it?
And what is it, yeah. David, I'm going to ask you a slightly different question in saying that, you're all doing things, each of you, outside of the kitchen, outside of hospitality, and necessarily Jean-François not being, considering himself not a chef. Do chefs need a different skill set for these talents, or is it something that you just have to sort of be more introspective and say you want to give back and you want to affect some sort of change, or is it, how would you, what questions did you ask of yourself? Like, what did you learn about yourself in starting up this?
Well, I think it comes down to experience and different things that you see and what you read. I don't think that there's a great deal of difference between, too many chefs. I think it's, I was lucky enough to see, a lot of, things like this competition over in the UK. I never had the balls to compete. I didn't want to get crushed, and I was pretty sure that I would instantly. So, there was some, I probably should have gone for the experience, but at the time, I didn't have enough experience. So, I think once you've traveled and you've seen a lot of different things, and if you've given that, I'm very fortunate to be where I am. I mean, there could be 100 different people in my spot right now, and that, if I'm here, I may as well, do something that's worthwhile. I'm very passionate about Canada, and that, I want to see, I thought it was a bit of a shame that the Pellegrino Awards came out and there was not one Canadian restaurant on there, right? And so, somebody may have seen that I posted a picture of the Canadian flag and sent that to Pellegrino and said, what about us? We should be on there. And that, Buca does a great job. I mean, there's so many great restaurants here, so, that's where I see it.
But mentoring is a big part of what your scholarship is too. So do you find you've had great role models in that, or interesting role models would be the word?
I've had very interesting.
You've had Marco Pierre White as one of yours.
They have different roles and their motivational techniques for sure. That was probably not the best. I was inspired just to see what people created over there, and that I felt very passionate about this, and I thought, I've got to do something like this. So, and then when I took it to the team and said, well, what do you think? Should we do this? And let's give it a try. And it's remarkable, what's happened so far, and I can't wait to see what's going to happen 4 or 5 years from now. So.
And do you find your team gets, and I could say this of all of you, do you find the people now who are your ambassadors for you and for, the food recovery? You've got Normand and Ricardo for you, Jean-François, and elsewhere. Do you find you get just as much out as it's just as rewarding for you as to watch what happens when the light goes on with those you are helping affect the change? Yeah,
the 2 guys that have won so far, it's amazing to see one's at per se right now doing his stage. Paul Moran went to Jewel in Mexico. That's, I can't wait to see what happens. Those 2, Michael Christensen and Paul Moran, you'll be hearing about those names, and they're going to be doing great things. And from the chef side too, is that, I went to Normand and I said, do you want to do this? Yes, absolutely, no problem. Every chef, everybody I've asked to do this, at no point, nobody said no at all. And they're all on board. They're all committing their time for free. And there's a tremendous sense of pride in these guys. So.
Do you think it starts off small? I mean, you've got a big project now. What could this room do tomorrow? Like one thing that you would say, tomorrow I want you to do this, beyond asking where the seafood comes or something. I mean, something that they could literally affect some change. Does it start small? Does it start big? Or think big and then work backwards?
This is a great opportunity. I need everybody here to talk to 5 or 10 of young chefs out there and get them to have a look at the website and get them to put their name out there. And maybe somebody like myself, when I was 25, I would have got pushed and had a great experience there. But yeah, I think something like that would be great.
And what about you, Jean-François? What would you?
I mean, for me, is we started with one chef in a pilot project in a school in Saint-Henri, one of the poorest areas in Montreal, and it worked. It worked well. And then we grew up to 4 schools and four cooks, four chefs involved in the schools. And now I have 60 cooks and chefs involved. And it's sharing their passion. And so it's for me it's like now I go to them and I say you're gonna love it. You're gonna want it. You're gonna spend time with those teenagers and you're gonna share your passion and get them connected to food. And it creates that. So now I have 60 chefs, cooks involved in the schools, and I have in foster care programs all across the province. I have 17 more chefs, so we're up to almost 100 chefs involved now. So it's just a matter of spreading the word around because the chefs are so generous. That's what I see. I hear you. I mean, at the base, chefs are passionate. They're generous. They want to share. They want to share their knowledge and skills through their food. But also they're generous by nature. So for me, it's just creating this movement so they can get involved and really share their passion with those teenagers. Because you know what? At the end, these teenagers are going to be the next generation of young adults, and they're going to feed their families. So if we don't connect them with food now, who's going to do it?
Absolutely. Did you have any doors slammed in your faces, any of you, when you were doing this? I mean, Ned, okay. What, did you have any, you've got to be crazy, no, there's no way, we're not going to help you, turn around and walk away?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it was, I rode across Vancouver Island first as a precursor to the country to see if there was an appetite for what we were about to do. I ended at the Comox Shellfish Festival on my 40th birthday, and I thought,